views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hi, and welcome to Open BX RX Tuesday on BronxNet, a weekly program providing you the latest information, resources, services, and community efforts taking place locally here in the Bronx and virtually. I'm your host, Kibin, Alleyne, and today is Tuesday, October 26th, 2021. Coming up, a new initiative aimed to give nightlife workers mental health assistance. Has New York City nightlife recovered from the effects of the pandemic? Then, a Montefiore Einstein clinician secures a $4.2 million grant to fund community-based interventions, helping children manage their asthma symptoms. Do Bronx children face a higher risk? After that, researchers at Montefiore and Albert Einstein College of Medicine have been awarded a $4.1 million grant to study ways to reduce symptoms of depression and anxiety. What will recent findings mean long-term for families in the Bronx? And two leaders are taking teacher appreciation to a new level. A discussion on how you can nominate your favorite New York City teachers for a flag award. Will this effort make up for what's missing in New York City public schools? So please stick around. Open BX RX Tuesday starts now. Welcome to Open BX RX Tuesday on BronxNet. I'm your host, Kibin, Alleyne, and I'd like to invite you to get social with us at BronxNet TV on Instagram and Twitter, and BronxNet Community Television on Facebook. When the mayor says recovery for all of us, he truly meant all of us. The Office of Nightlife, the Mayor's Office of Community Mental Health, and Backline Care presents a new initiative aimed to give nightlife workers mental health assistance. Here to discuss the initiative is Ariel Palitz, Executive Director of the Office of Nightlife. Ariel, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So can we first just start out talking about the Office of Nightlife and what that department does for New Yorkers? Because there's so many, I don't know if everyone's fully aware of what your office does.
Thank you. Yes, I mean, relatively speaking, the Office of Nightlife is new to New York City. This office is the first of its kind in the history of New York. And it was created 3.5 years ago to really be a dedicated non-enforcement liaison between the hospitality industry, the night, and the city.
So the pandemic took a toll on not only our physical health, but the mental health of many around our city. Can you detail how you've probably seen this play out?
Well, I mean, for the nightlife industry, it's a hard job, as everyone knows. It's much like even being a shift worker that works overnight, like a police officer or a doctor. And so it's a high stress environment, a lot of pressure in general. And so even pre-pandemic, we were seeing the need to provide mental health support for the industry. This was only amplified and had a greater sense of urgency during the time of the pandemic. We were hearing really disturbing stories about self-harm, suicidal thoughts, relapse from addiction, post-traumatic stress, and just high anxiety in general. This pandemic, as we know, targets or is spread in social gathering spaces. And it's especially stressful when you must go to a social space, especially when your livelihood depends on it.
So the Office of Nightlife, the Mayor's Office of Community Mental Health, and Backline Care partnered for a new initiative to kind of combat this. Can you tell us more about that effort?
Sure. I mean, again, the sense of urgency really became evident to us. And again, as you had also mentioned, the mayor did commit for mental health for all. And so we took the opportunity to partner with the mayor's Office of Community Mental Health and a non-for-profit backline in order to provide what we heard people needed. First is a free weekly collective trauma mental health support group for people in the industry. It's every Monday at 4 p.m. and you can register in advance so that you can get a reminder email because everyone's life is so hectic, as we know. And we also provide free one-on-one casework support to help you develop a personal mental health plan and to assess what free and affordable and sliding scale services there are, not just locally, but nationally. So it's really someone who takes your hand and walks you through your needs and what's available and what you can afford.
Now, who is eligible for this?
It's really anyone in the nightlife, music, and hospitality industry. And so if that's how you make your living and that's primarily your livelihood, then you're eligible for this program.
So now the next thing I found super interesting was that you collaborated, like you said, with a nonprofit organization, Backline. How did you learn about them?
So, really the Office of Nightlife, our greatest strength is to be able to amplify and hear what the industry needs and to act on it. And so we really reached out to the industry. In this case, I reached out to the House of Yes, and one of the owners, Anya, over there had been very public about a mental health crisis in her own life. And so I went and I called her and I said, what was your experience like and what worked for you? And I also reached out to Diana Mora, who owns a venue called Friends and Lovers, but also is the head of New York City Nightlife United. And they had also been doing a lot of work with owners and workers. And they agreed that collective trauma support groups and the casework was really what they needed. And Anya had worked directly with Backline and really endorsed them. And then when I brought it up to the Mayor's Office of Community Mental Health, they were already aware of this group and were able to also endorse their effectiveness. And we just felt, again, time is of the essence. This is what the industry said they need. Let's do it.
I want to touch on the fact that many New Yorkers view nightlife workers as the life of the party. It's fun, it's exciting, but they may not realize what they go through. You mentioned previously that there has always been a great need for mental health support for the nightlife community. What are some of the traumas and stress workers in that field deal with on a daily basis, and how has it been heightened by the pandemic?
Well, I'll just preface by saying first, I think there's no industry that really is spared from mental health needs and concerns. And everyone, I think this pandemic has shown, can benefit from having open, honest conversations about mental health and transparent support. Our office is dedicated to this industry, and that's why it is our focus to make sure they have what they need. But it's a high energy, high volume environment that can be crowded. You're dealing with public personal service, the service industry. You're dealing with making sure people get what they need, customer service. There's alcohol, of course, involved, loud music. Also, your sleep hours are off. You wake up late, you work late. Sometimes dinner is at 4 a.m. and breakfast is at 5 p.m. And so your rhythms are different and the stressors are different. Again, somewhat like a shift worker in a hospital. So, and I also think people that work at night are sometimes people that also have other dreams and are working and hustling during the day. They're actors, they're musicians. And so they're highly ambitious, highly creative, highly sensitive people that are, are really doing everything they can to make it in this town. And that's why nightlife is such a great stepping stone for those ambitious people. And those are the people that we want to make sure are thriving and surviving.
That was such a lovely way to put it. Thank you so much for answering that. Now, what can the people who are going to join this program expect to encounter?
I think, first and foremost, that, they've been heard, and that there are services that are answering to their needs. And so I hope they encounter a safe space that they feel that they can reach out to and feel safe to do so. They will find confidentiality, they will find compassion. In the collective trauma groups on Mondays, they're going to find that they're not alone, and they can share these experiences with other workers. And I think that really is the foundation of to begin to heal, that you're not alone, and that there's support for you, and that there's no shame, and that we're all in this together, and we need each other, and it's okay to ask for help.
Now, I want to talk about the importance of having free mental health services, especially like in our city where there's so many people dealing with so many different things.
Well, mental health is expensive, and the profession can be very costly. And I don't want to also, misrepresent the free. There's free collective trauma groups on Mondays, but then the caseworkers work to find affordable sliding scale service providers, but also if there are free. So it's a mixture of free and affordable. So I don't want people to think, oh, it's a free mental health for all. It's affordable and accessible. And you have a caseworker that will work within your means. Needless to say, free mental health for all would be, the ideal scenario. And I think as awareness of the need for this for everyone, we're probably headed in that direction. But for now, this program is really meant to meet you where you are and to provide what we can to help support you.
Now, where can people in that industry sign up for these programs?
Well, I really encourage everyone in the nightlife industry to visit our website, nyc.gov/nightlife, and also to follow us on social media at NYC Nightlife Gov. And you can also follow Backline Care.care. On our website, you will find a link to the Elevate program, and you can register on Eventbrite for the following week or weeks in advance, and it gives you a reminder email that so you don't forget. And I would just recommend again that people follow us on social. We have lots of different kinds of programs and support for the industry. Sign up for our newsletter, which you can also find on our website, and just stay in the loop because we're always doing new things, providing guidance and information, and also amplifying the voice of the industry and community to make sure that you have a seat at the table and you're being heard every day.
That's amazing, Ariel. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
We'll be right back.
If you're struggling to afford your internet bills during the pandemic, there's a temporary government program that may be able to help. It's called the Emergency Broadband Benefit, and it provides up to $50 monthly discount on your broadband bill to qualifying households. Find more information about the program, including if you qualify and how to enroll, at fcc.gov/broadbandbenefit, or call toll-free at 833-511-0311. That's 833-511-0311.
most at risk for coronavirus: people over 65, people with underlying medical conditions like heart disease, chronic lung disease, asthma, diabetes, people undergoing cancer treatment, and people with weakened immune systems. What should you do if you or a loved one is at higher risk? Avoid close contact with people, avoid crowds, stay home if you can, wash your hands frequently, learn more ways to protect yourself and others at coronavirus.gov.
Welcome back. A new community-based approach towards helping children manage their asthma symptoms is coming to the Bronx. Here to discuss the latest study, as well as what you can do for your loved ones with asthma, is Dr. Marina Reznick of the Children's Hospital at Montefiore and Albert Einstein College of Medicine. Dr. Reznick, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So, asthma is a common health condition in this country, affecting about 1 in 13 Americans. Can we first just start off by talking about what asthma is and how it affects our bodies?
Yes, asthma is a common chronic disease that affects lungs and airways. Somebody who has asthma, their airways are sensitive, and they're sensitive to triggers such as pollen, dust, cigarette smoke, or viral illnesses. So when somebody with asthma gets exposed to triggers, these three things happen in their lungs. Their airways get inflamed, they get swollen and red. There's an excess mucus production that can clog or obstruct the airways. And then the muscles around the airways can tighten, and that's called bronchospasm. And that makes somebody with asthma have difficulty breathing. Now, as I mentioned, asthma is a chronic disease, so there is no cure, but there are ways to manage it, such as taking medication, avoiding triggers, and then treating the asthma attack as soon as it starts.
Now, according to your research, the rate of asthma prevalence in the Bronx is as high as 25% in some neighborhoods, which is the highest rate of all New York City boroughs. Do you have any idea why we see this pattern in the Bronx?
Yes, the exact cause of asthma is unknown, but there are multiple factors that play a role, such as air pollution and diesel exhaust particles from heavy traffic. So in South Bronx, where we see the highest prevalence of asthma in the Bronx and around the city, is located among the three major highways, the Major Deegan, the Brockner, and Cross Bronx Expressway. So that air pollution from the exhaust particles is one of the contributing factors to the high rates of asthma. In addition, the deteriorated housing conditions with mold or pests such as cockroaches or mouse or secondhand exposure are other environmental triggers of asthma. Finally, genetics plays a role. We know that asthma usually runs in families, so it may be inherited. So all of these factors together may contribute to the development of the disease.
Now, I was very surprised to read that the Bronx also has the highest overall rates of asthma hospitalizations and deaths in New York. How common is death from asthma, and is it something that most families should worry about?
Yeah, so the Bronx has, as you mentioned, highest asthma death rates and hospitalization rates. So in terms of death, the death rates in the Bronx are 3 times higher than the rest of the United States. So what that amounts to is about 40 deaths per 1 million of residents compared to about 13 deaths per 1 million across the nation. So the deaths from asthma are more common in adults than children, about 5 times more common, and that's usually due to some pre-existing or comorbid conditions. But in children, again, some of the comorbid or pre-existing condition can contribute, such as severe prematurity or other lung disease or heart disease can contribute to the death rate. The death rates due to asthma are rare, but they do happen and they are preventable, particularly in children and young adults.
Okay, thank you so much for that. So this kind of segues into the next thing. As part of Montefiore Health System, you'll be leading a community-based approach to help children in the Bronx manage their asthma symptoms. Could you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so there are several symptoms of asthma. I will speak to the most common ones. So coughing is a very common symptom that usually occurs at night or early morning, making it hard to sleep. Wheezing is another common symptom, which is like a whistling or a squeaking sound that occurs when somebody with asthma is breathing, but not every child or every person with asthma wheezes. So cough could be the only symptom of asthma, and that's important to note. The other symptom is chest tightness or pain in the chest, and you would hear children saying that there's something that's squeezing their chest. And then finally, shortness of breath. Some people with asthma may have shortness of breath, or they have trouble catching their breath, or they can feel like they can get the air out of their lungs.
Now, going back to the study a little, you're going to be working with 40 different schools in the Bronx. Why was it important to work with schools on this project?
Yes, asthma management does not stop in a clinic or in a doctor's office. Children spend at least half of their waking hours in school. And so asthma management should continue and occur in the school setting. Children may have asthma exacerbations or asthma attacks after playing in a gym, or if they are in recess, we commonly hear about those episodes, and there could be also exposed to triggers within the school setting. And so school personnel may be the first ones to attend to the child who's having asthma. And so there's a need to be prepared for them to deal with a child or student who has asthma.
So the schools will be divided into asthma pass intervention or the asthma management comparison group. Can you elaborate more on this? Like, what are the differences between the two groups?
Yes, so the schools will be randomly assigned to the asthma pass intervention or the asthma management comparison group. And the reason is for us to find out if there's a difference between the groups. So all enrolled families will receive 2 asthma lessons delivered by the community health worker. And then the schools that are randomized to the asthma pass will receive the asthma workshop for the school personnel, as well as hold an asthma awareness week. And families of students who are enrolled in the asthma pass schools will also have a regular check-ins with the community health worker who will address any of the other care coordination needs or any other concerns related to asthma. Now, at the end of the study, at the end of the 12 months period, after we complete all the assessments, the school programmatic components, the asthma workshop for the school personnel and asthma awareness week, those activities will be provided to the comparison group. So at the end, everybody gets the full asthma pass intervention.
And I like that you mentioned the awareness week because that was actually going to be my next question. You wanted the children to actually learn about asthma. And, why did your team want to have the children aware of what's happening and use it as a learning opportunity?
Yes, the Asthma Awareness Week, that component of the Asthma Pass intervention actually was developed in collaboration with the school personnel, parents of children with asthma, and community members. And it was based on our prior study where we identified that children who have asthma, they are stigmatized and also embarrassed for their peers to know that they have asthma or even to use the inhaler in front of others. And so this particular component was developed in collaboration with the school and community stakeholders. And so it's important for everybody in the school to be aware of what asthma is, how common it is, and what to do if they see their classmate having an asthma attack. And so during the Asthma Awareness Week, children participate in different activities to bring awareness to everybody at the school, whether they have asthma or not, about asthma. So teachers play a major role during that week, and there are different activities from art projects to some classrooms develop poems about asthma and healthy living. Others do posters and write facts about asthma that they learned throughout the week. And then at the end of that week, they display all of their posters and their artwork around the school so that everybody can see and learn from each other.
I think that's really amazing. And what's also really cool to me is that children aren't the only ones who will be learning. Caregivers enrolled in both groups will receive asthma education and COVID-19 support. Why did you want to make an effort to include the families as well?
Yeah, so parents and other caregivers, other family members play a major role in asthma management. So they need to know how to correctly administer the medication, the inhaler and the spacer device, especially for younger children. And they also need to follow the treatment plan that the doctor will provide to them. So also triggers that they could have at home, they need to be able to control it, that the child may not be able to know or do anything about it. And then also family members may be taking the child to seek medical care, so they need to know what are the symptoms to look out for and when is the time to take the child to see a doctor. And so for the asthma pass, we would like at least one caregiver to be there during the asthma education lessons, but we also open it to any other family member who is there at the time of the lesson.
So what do you hope to see what do you hope the outcome of this study will be?
Yes, we will be comparing the outcomes between the two groups, and these include asthma control measures, such as symptom-free days, as well as physical activity. So we hope that to find that children in the asthma pass group will have more symptom-free days and better asthma control.
Now, I also want to add, since we're in the wake of the pandemic, has COVID made things harder for those living with asthma?
Yes, definitely. Our community have been affected by COVID, and so some families had difficulty accessing their medication during the pandemic. Many families were afraid to go to clinics and hospital to seek care for asthma due to potential exposure to the COVID virus, and social and economic impact was tremendous due to COVID, and that made it difficult for some families to focus on children's health. Surprisingly, many children actually had improvement in their asthma symptoms when the schools were closed last year, and due to social distancing and masking rules, and because they were not exposed to the triggers that they usually exposed when they are in schools.
Oh, wow, that's really interesting. So what can families who aren't in this study do to protect their children when dealing with asthma?
Yeah, so there are four important things that I could recommend. One is be certain to visit a doctor regularly and have an asthma action plan to follow at home. Speak to the doctor about triggers, identify those triggers and ways to avoid those triggers. And then remembering to take the medication as prescribed by the doctor. And finally, we are starting with the flu season, so getting the flu vaccine is very important. And just remembering that asthma attacks can be prevented by taking at least these measures.
Dr. Resnick, thank you so much for joining us. Can you quickly just let everybody know how they can keep in touch with you?
Yes, definitely. They can reach me at my email at mresnick@montefiore.org, or call the clinic, the Family Care Center at Montefiore, where I see patients at 718-920-2273.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with more Open BXRX Tuesday.
We know that people are dealing with the health crisis, but there's also a lot of food insecurity.
We're giving out healthy food options, and that's what's key here.
If you're a senior, you have a disability, they'll actually deliver meals to you.
The residents are anxious, they're worried, they're scared, they want to be tested.
When things were happening in our community and we couldn't get the help.
There's almost a presumption of criminality that attaches to your skin color.
The site will prioritize those who are at highest risk in the population.
If you feel symptoms and you'd like to visit one of these COVID-19 testing sites here in the Bronx, you may call the State Health Department's hotline.
Important to note about this site is no reservations are needed. This is a walk-in clinic.
A lot of us are out of work and looking for something to do.
We have the machinery and the skills to make large scale of these masks and gowns.
Take care of your people. It's going to go way further than we actually can understand.
Right now, employees like myself are just adjusting to the new reality.
Reporting from BronxNet, this is Trans.
Welcome back. October marks the start of National Depression and Mental Health Screening Month. Here to discuss a new initiative aimed to reduce depression and anxiety amongst Bronx caregivers is Dr. Amanda Zayde. I'm sorry, I have to start over. Oh, okay. 3, 2, 1. Welcome back. October marks the start of National Depression and Mental Health Screening Month. Here to discuss a new initiative aimed to reduce depression and anxiety amongst Bronx caregivers is Dr. Amanda Zayde of the Montefiore Health System. Doctor, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
So I just want to start off by saying, although people focus on physical health when discussing COVID, the pandemic has also affected the mental health of many, putting multiple stressors on caregivers and parents. The American Psychological Association found that 75% of parents say they could have used more emotional support, while 24% have been diagnosed with a mental health condition. Were you at all shocked by these numbers, and what does this mean long-term for families?
Yeah, I don't find it so shocking given the incredible stress that many families have been under just during the course of the pandemic. The pandemic has led to increased social isolation, and people really have had so many worries about their physical health and financial concerns, and all of those things can put people at higher risk for mental health concerns. I think it's one of the reasons that it's so important for us to keep an eye out for our loved ones during this time, and if we see them really struggling, make sure to connect them with a mental health provider, healthcare worker, because that's what we're here for.
And how do you think this will affect families long term?
I think we're still looking into the research in terms of COVID-19. I think it's been a really challenging time, but I think, the parent-child relationship is one of the most important protectors for children, both during and after adversity. And that's why it's so important that we sort of support parents during this time and provide help for families.
Now, how do you think COVID has changed the way we talk about mental health in our communities?
One of the things that, first of all, I do want to say that the pandemic has really disproportionately impacted our Bronx community and made it challenging for so many. One of the positive things that I think has changed is the landscape of the provision of mental health care. And so telehealth, right, is just so much more widely available than it has been in the past, really kind of increasing access to care and treatment engagement and reducing barriers such as transportation.
Now, the National Institute of Health has awarded researchers at Montefiore and Albert Einstein College of Medicine a 5-year, $4.1 million grant to work with Bronx caregivers and healthcare workers. First, I want to say congratulations, and then can you tell us more about this study?
Yes, thank you so much. We are thrilled and so excited to be able to support caregivers during this time. As I mentioned earlier, the parent-child relationship can serve as such a buffer for any of the negative impacts of COVID-19 on children. And so important to us to reach out to the community. And this study will really allow us to provide support for parents of children who have psychiatric conditions, parents of children with autoimmune conditions, and also parents who are healthcare workers over the course of the next 5 years.
I'm so happy that you mentioned that, because I was going to ask, what a high stress parent look like. But I guess now I can ask, what are some ways that we can also support these high stress parents?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question. I mean, I think it's important to say that parenting is difficult to begin with for everybody, right? It has its ups and downs, and it can be really challenging. And the pandemic created just additional stressors for families. We've seen so many parents kind of attempting to balance work or worries around, not having work, so financial concerns, helping children with things like remote learning, which was extraordinarily challenging for all of us over the last 2 years. Again, and I can't stress this enough, all while feeling really socially isolated, right? There was a big portion of time there where we couldn't even hug our friends and families. And so, I think I would want to say, if parents find themselves feeling overwhelmed, feeling like they're having a really hard time just managing the intense emotions that can happen, or even having a hard time getting along with friends and families, reach out to us, right? That's what mental health care workers are here for. And we all could use a little bit of help sometimes. There's no shame in asking for support, that's for sure.
So I want to talk about the study a little bit closely. I understand that your team will look at 3 different approaches: group therapy, parental education, and then there's going to be a combined approach. Can you explain what that will look like?
I'd be happy to. That's exactly right. So the caregivers are going to be split randomly into 3 different treatment approaches, just as you said. In one approach, we're going to have a care management app, and that's going to allow parents to do things like book appointments and to be in touch with their care management team. And we have customized parent education materials developed by our team, and it's going to cover everything from, just overall management of stress to parenting challenges. And then the next treatment approach will be the care group therapy. It's going to be meeting virtually once a week. And it's really sort of just to bring parents or primary caregivers together in a very non-judgmental space to build a community, right? And they're going to be parents who help each other sort of navigate stressful parenting moments, to share resources, and everybody leaves learning something about themselves and their relationship with their child. And then the third, as you said, will be a combination of these 2 treatment approaches. And the study is really going to give us an opportunity to support parents in multiple ways, and just to learn a little bit more about how we can best support parents in our community during times of adversity.
Now, I'd really like to know, what are you hoping will come from this, or what do you hope to see?
Goodness. Well, we are hoping to see, I think, parents feel less alone in their parenting experience. I think many times parents feel like they're the only one. They're the only one really struggling. Oftentimes parents can really beat themselves up and feel like they're a bad parent, right? I'm hoping they feel less alone. I'm hoping that within the context of them feeling less alone, this will serve to strengthen their relationship with their child. And, I'm hoping that a sense of community will help buffer the sort of isolation that many of these parents have felt over the course of the past couple of years.
Now, I feel like you're also taking somewhat of a modern approach because patients will use technology, while you're doing this study. Why did you want to include that element?
Yeah, I think the simplest answer is we wanted to include technology to increase access to care for our community, which I think is especially important during this time, right? And our digital care app will not only provide a means of communication with the care team, but it's also going to coordinate connections to other healthcare providers for the caregivers and parents.
So mental health is oftentimes a difficult conversation to have, and I understand that it can sometimes be harder for communities of color. Why do you think people have a hard time with this?
I want to start by saying I'm so glad that you're asking this question. I think it's so important that we talk about it. And I would say that on a community level, I think that it's imperative that we acknowledge the existence of institutional racism and the fact that, communities of color have been historically mistreated and abused. And I think naturally that impacts trust in systems of care. And it's something that we have to be always sort of holding in mind. On a personal level, I have seen that when people share something painful or challenging, which can be hard to do, and they then feel that they're not being heard or understood, or that their thoughts and feelings aren't valued, it can lead to this conditioned response, right, where it just feels less and less safe to open up and share. And so I think it's important to note that there can be so much pressure to say exactly the right thing, right? When someone comes to you with something painful, you want to get it just right. I have felt that before. But the reality is, if you can just sort of be curious about their experience and listen and really be present with them, that in and of itself can be enough to help somebody feel really just less alone in their experience.
And how does this work build upon some of the work that you've already done with this community in the past?
Yes. So I developed Care about 7 years ago, and our aim really was to bring together parents of children who are struggling with similar challenges. And again, I'll keep saying this just to sort of build a community, because I think parenting can feel isolating at times, especially when you feel you're the only one having this experience. We wanted to create a space where parents could talk about the emotional experience of parenting and encourage one another through these stressful moments, and of course really strengthen their relationship with their child, right? Bring the joy into caregiving and parenting.
And I quickly want to go over just some misconceptions there can be about, mental health services and what's available to certain communities. Do you feel that there is do you feel that there may be a misconception that mental health services aren't available to everyone?
One of the reasons that I really was excited to do this interview, despite being nervous about it, was to let everybody know that, Montefiore is here and we offer services for all ages and all stages of life. We serve people with all different kinds of mental health needs in offices throughout the Bronx. So we're here and we'd love to see you and meet you and offer support.
And what can people now do to just improve their mental health at home?
Ooh, okay. So I personally think one of the most important things we can all do, myself included, to support our mental health is a little bit more self-compassion. And one way to do this is in moments where you feel just like super overwhelmed or stressed out or pissed off or whatever it is, to take what I like to call just like a sacred pause. It can be, 10 seconds to just sort of pause and notice what you're thinking and notice what feelings are coming up. There may be more than one, and breathe. And I like to ask myself, what would I say to a loved one if they were going through something really similar? And the reason I ask myself this is because I find that we're often so much kinder, right, to our friends and our family than we are to ourselves, than we are in the way that we speak to ourselves. And so one thing that I hold in mind, and maybe this will be helpful for others, is a saying I really love, and it is, if your compassion does not include yourself, it is incomplete. And so I think that is what I would most highly recommend during this time.
Well, that was amazing. Thank you so much. Can you just let everybody know quickly where they can get in touch?
Yes, absolutely. So you can send us an email at parentsupportstudy@montefiore.org or give us a call, 929-429-5644. We are waiting to hear from you. Come and join our community.
All right, Doctor, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
We'll be right back with more Open BX RX Tuesday. Welcome back. This duo is taking teacher appreciation to a new level with the Flag Award for Teaching Excellence. The program recognizes and celebrates New York City's public school teachers, and we now turn to a clip of the winners for last year's awards.
The best thing about being a New York City public school teacher has to be
working in the city itself.
The students and the community that I serve.
You really feel as a teacher that you're making a difference in their lives.
People that I work with are some of the most intelligent, creative, and just fiery people that I know, and it's just a pleasure to work with them.
The kids. Their energy every day and just having the diversity in the classroom is absolutely energizing.
The connection.
Joining us to discuss the program are founders of the Flag Award for Teaching Excellence, Amanda and Glenn Fuhrman. Thank you both for joining us. So I wanted to just jump right into it. The Flag Award for Teaching Excellence started back in 2019. Can you tell us what inspired you both to start this program?
You know, I think we both have a real appreciation for teachers. Amanda and I spent, we have 3 children, all being educated, and we have a lot of family members that were teachers, Amanda's mother, my aunt, et cetera. And, you know, we just want to really highlight the great teachers out there, and especially public school teachers who are doing such a great job and working so hard to educate the future of our country. And we really just wanted to celebrate those great teachers.
So now people are eligible or can now nominate their favorite teachers for a Flag Award. What do you look for in a candidate and who is eligible?
Well, all full-time public school teachers are eligible in all 5 boroughs. You have to be teaching somewhere in grades K through 12 and have at least 5 years of experience. And then teachers can be nominated by their students, by parents of students, by principals, fellow teachers, or colleagues. We have a lot of teachers that get nominated by principals, but you know, we love to see students and parents of students nominating great teachers as well, which happens very frequently.
And I think in terms of the criteria, you know, this past year, everything that's happened in the educational system, the movement to more online learning, and the sort of difficulty that teachers have had only made it more clear that they need more resources to provide the kinds of education that we're looking for to our next generations of kids. And so we're looking for people in particular who might be using their resources in particularly creative ways, or innovating to have new styles of learning that they can bring into the classroom, looking for collaborations with, you know, we live in New York City, the greatest place in the world. There's all kinds of educational opportunities in the city itself. So there may be partnering with museums or other local organizations or community organizations. So, you know, these teachers are doing some really dynamic and exceptional things. And it's just been our honor and pleasure to get to know a little bit more about all of them.
Now, you kind of mentioned the criteria just slightly, but I understand you have something called CREATE, which I think sounds really cool. Can you just elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, we created an acronym just to help identify some of the specific things we're looking for. And so we use the word CREATE to help identify that. And so that stands for the 6 key things we're looking for. So the C stands for challenges and inspires students of all abilities, utilizing innovative teaching techniques and approaches to curricula and activities. R reaches out beyond the classroom, making a positive impact on the school and the community. E embraces their role as an educator with tireless, devoted dedication. A acknowledges the full spectrum of potential in each and every student. T teaches through example as a leader and role model both inside and outside the classroom. And E engages in opportunities for self-improvement and continues to learn, grow, and develop as a teacher. So many of the things that Amanda actually just identified as well.
Now, I think that's pretty cool and it's amazing. So the people who do embody this have a chance of winning. And I really want to get into that because it seems like there are some really cool things that are being offered. Firstly, I want to say, I understand there are different tiers to actually winning. Can you detail that for us?
Well, the most exciting thing is it's a big group of people. That's what we're excited about. So we identify the one grand prize winner in each of the 5 New York City boroughs, and each of those teachers will win an unrestricted cash prize of $25,000. And so that's the number one prize. But we highlight a lot of other teachers as well. So there's a group of finalists that each receive $10,000, and then a group of semifinalists that each receive $500. So in general, we're giving awards to over 30 teachers across the board. And at the same time, each of their schools also receive monies to do things in the school as well. So in addition to what I just mentioned for the teachers getting for themselves, the schools of the winning teachers get an additional $10,000. The finalist schools get $2,000, and then the semifinal schools get $500 as well. So there's a lot of money going to the teachers themselves, but importantly also to the schools that can be used to benefit the entire school.
Now, these are huge prizes that I'm sure will mean a lot to New York City teachers. Oftentimes, we see many teachers use their own resources. Are you hoping this effort will make up for what's possibly missing in our New York City public school system?
I mean, I certainly hope that it might at least shine a light on the incredible work that these individuals are doing with really limited resources. And I think it's important to recognize everything that teachers do. I mean, I think that to think that we're at a place where teachers just cover the basics of reading, writing, and arithmetic is naive to what is really going on in these communities, and a lot of communities in New York and across the country. And the teachers are stepping in as leaders in ways that are really important to these kids and these students. And so we hope that it just draws attention to the exceptional efforts these people are making. And if that, brings attention to the need for more resources for schools, that would be wonderful. I mean, at least to get community involvement and support of your local system is incredible. So we're hopeful in general that promoting teachers promotes everyone in the educational system, for sure.
Now, I kind of want to talk a little bit about how you mentioned the schools will also win. I understand that there's also a focus on an arts-based initiative. Can you speak a little bit more to that and why you wanted to highlight the arts?
Well, I think a little bit what you said before, and what Amanda was mentioning, resources are limited. And one area that has had some resources taken away over the years is the arts and the appreciation and the ability to work in the arts. And so we have highlighted some type of arts-based initiative for the funds that we give the schools. It can be interpreted pretty broadly, so that can be used really in very, very creative and broad ways. But we do want to highlight that we think giving some extra funding to arts in general would be positive for the schools and for the students there. We are actively involved in many different aspects of the arts. And so that was part of the program from the beginning.
So now I want to touch on the fact that teachers face so many challenges during the pandemic. Do you think awards like this are necessary now more than ever?
I mean, I think it's always nice to have awards that celebrate excellence in anything. Teachers are sometimes underappreciated in our view, and so this type of an award, I think, and we think, is beneficial anytime. But of course, during the pandemic, when teachers are even more under pressure than ever before, having to deal with things like remote learning, with Zoom, and all kinds of other issues that have never really been confronted before, of course, it's certainly helpful. But I think teachers always deserve to be celebrated.
I think that one of the problems, we saw this with first responders and the healthcare workers during the pandemic. All of a sudden, sort of these people that we almost take for granted in our daily lives, that they're going to be there when we need them and we have a health incident, we saw how critical they are to our system. And I think when kids weren't able to go to school, all of a sudden, and parents were having to do the educating at home, we had a realization that, oh, wow, yeah, those teachers are really important. What they're doing is really critical. And I think that if we can keep the enthusiasm and that kind of respect and gratitude up in all these fields, not just during times of crisis, that it just makes such a huge difference. Each of us has been touched by a teacher in our lives. I've pretty much never spoken to a student who hasn't, and they deserve to be appreciated all the time, whether it's a pandemic or not.
You just let everyone know where they can find out more about your organization and participate.
So if you'd like to nominate a great teacher for this prize and win $25,000, go to flagaward.org and you can nominate any amazing teacher you like, more than one. It's totally fine. We have a process to review and analyze a whole bunch of great teachers. So go ahead and nominate again, flagaward.org.
And anyone can nominate, correct, Glenn?
Yes.
Students, teachers, parents.
You can't nominate yourself, but you can nominate another great teacher.
All right, awesome. Amanda, Glenn, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
That's all for our show today. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Kibin, Alleyne, wishing you and yours safety and wellness now and always. See you next time.